Because you haven't registered, I need to register you so I can get paid too.
That 7-day rule is what is allowing California to constantly just count the vote until they win. Thousands of late mail ballots from LA's homeless shelters just flipped the LA mayor's race against Spencer Pratt. Now, a Supreme Court ruling filed back in March that could come down any day might give him the legal weapon that he needs to fight back. We're going to talk about that and all the other things today on Still Not Canceled. My name is Kelly Jackson. Let's dig in. First, I'm going to show you a little snippet about California's election system from the California Post. I find they are like center right as far as a news source.
I'm going to talk about a scandal that is rocking the voting process across California on the eve of the June 2nd primary election. There have been two separate incidents in which voting was subject to various kinds of vandalism or interference. At Long Beach, at a park still named for Cesar Chavez, a voting center was vandalized. And in downtown Los Angeles, ballots were set on fire inside a ballot drop box.
Set on fire. These random ballot drop boxes placed all over Los Angeles is what California considers to be a safe and secure place for people to put their votes. They set all these votes on fire, but whatever.
These are being treated as isolated incidents, but they do remind us of how vulnerable California's voting process is to interference. One of the reasons California is so vulnerable is it has one of the most permissive voting systems in the country.
The state's attorney in California that was put there by President Trump, he said that in order for people to register to vote in California, the types of ID that are permitted are things like prescription bottles with your name on them, ID cards from the gym, ID cards from Costco, any kind of club membership, anything that has your name on it, basically, is totally suitable for you to use if you want to register to vote, which is pure insanity. They've made the argument that, well, it makes it easy for everybody to vote. You know, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have to make it inclusive. Well, when you make it that inclusive, you also make it very difficult to prove these people are who they say they are. But that's purposeful too.
It allows your ballot to be counted for up to 7 days after Election Day, as long as it was postmarked on Election Day. It also allows ballot harvesting, which is a practice where third parties can return as many ballots of other people as they can possibly carry. There's no limit, and you don't have to show any kind of ID when doing so. These practices are fairly unique to California, and they have created a lot of nationwide suspicion.
Although there are 30 states that do not require ID in order to vote. I'm going to let you figure out which ones those are, but I'll just say all the states that Kamala Harris won in the last presidential election are included in that list.
In California's results. Often, candidates who are leading on election night end up losing several weeks later when all the ballots are finally counted.
In 2010, Kamala Harris won the Attorney General's race in California after 4 weeks. The original winner of the race, after 4 weeks of counting the vote, he lost that race to Kamala Harris. 4 weeks of counting the vote.
There has been a slight correction to this process in that the U.S. Postal Service is now saying that just because a ballot is in a drop box or a mailbox on Election Day doesn't mean it's going to be postmarked that day. So California officials are telling people to get their ballots in on time or to vote in person. But voters who are looking for reasons to feel more confident in the results can take heart in the fact that nobody really knows what the net effect of these incidents will be. And as much as Democrats have used ballot harvesting in the past, Republicans have started to use it as well. So it might just even out. With that in mind, we encourage you to go to the polls or drop your ballot off at the drop boxes or in a mailbox and make your voice heard.
Yes, California Republicans have started to resort to ballot harvesting, but it's kind of like you almost have to fight fire with fire, which is unfortunate that we have to stoop to that. But I'm going to get to that Supreme Court case in just a second. But let's just start really quickly right here with a tweet that Spencer Pratt just shared the other day, and you can just look at this and you can see a net swing of more than 43,000 votes since Tuesday. 43,000. Where have I seen that number before? Probably nothing. But if you go right here, you can see it says 43,699 people experienced homelessness on any given night in the city of Los Angeles. So he is practically saying that the 43,000 votes that turned the election for Nithya Raman, who, by the way, was in tears on election night. It was practically a concession speech. She had essentially just sort of taken it as a fact that she was going to be in third place. He had a huge lead over her. She was cognizant of it, and yet here she is. But let's go ahead, and I'm going to bring up an article that was written by a New York Post. Bombshell photo unveils damning Nithya Raman link with homeless voters as fury erupts LA ballot count. So everyone is noticing, there's something wrong with the way that they count these things. And the fact that they're having to vote that much past election day almost screams interference with the actual count of the election. So this is the photo they're talking about right here. Thousands of homeless voters were registered to vote at LA shelters, despite many not living there or the facilities not having any beds. And as Spencer Pratt was eliminated by Nithya Raman in the mayor's race on Monday night, it can be revealed that one drop in center that received $600,000 from the socialist candidate had 185 registered voters at the address, but offers no accommodations. So in other words, they were using the homeless shelter as their place of residence, when in reality, that homeless shelter doesn't actually house anyone. Maybe people come there and they get lunch, or they get medical treatment, they get something there, but they're not actually able to live there. They don't have any beds. This is not that kind of homeless shelter. And yet 185 people were registered voters, listed that as their address. The revelations have prompted U.S. Attorney Bill Esali, I think that's how you say his name, to say he will investigate the concerns uncovered by the Post and follow the evidence to see if the law has been broken. So some people might say, well, 185 votes, that wouldn't change anything. Cumulatively, though, it does. Like, for example, she was only ahead of him, I think, the other day by 3,000 votes. Well, a review of records shows 7,600 voters, and those are the ones we know about, tied to homeless shelters and service providers. 7,600. That's a lot when you're counting every single vote, which unfortunately they are counting every single vote. Probably some that were maybe even run more than once, maybe twice, maybe three times. So here she is, that homeless shelter, City of Los Angeles, giving this particular shelter a $600,000 check. And then here's a homeless lady outside of one of the midnight mission on Monday. These are the kinds of people. They're walking up to these people and they're just registering them to vote. Do you really think that this lady right here has an ID on her? I seriously doubt it. They're going to register her anyway, and you bet they're going to register her as a Democrat, and they're probably going to get the ballots sent to the homeless shelter. They pick up the ballots at the homeless shelter in bunches and then drop them in drop boxes all over the city of Los Angeles. The organization received $600,000 taxpayer-funded grant awarded by Raman while she chaired the city council's Housing and Homelessness Committee. Remember, this is a person who is part of that homeless industrial complex. Last week, the Post contacted her campaign and the center seeking comment regarding the relationship between the council member and the organization, but has not heard back. However, a photograph showing Raman presenting a check was taken down from the website following our inquiries. Martin Rowe, a homeless man in Venice, told the Post he was registered to vote during an outreach effort outside of Ralph's grocery store. They asked you all the questions, Rowe said. They they gave you a paper. The largest concentration of homeless voters was at the Midnight Mission in Skid Row, 1,160 registrations, but its website shows it only has 84 beds for men or 36 beds for women. They said that the Post could not independently verify who provided them or what the activity was connected to any campaign, political organization, or voter registration group. But the details echo a similar case previously reported by the newspaper. In that case, a Marina Del Rey woman agreed to plead guilty to bombshell charges that she paid homeless people on Skid Row. That's what we're going to go to next. So let's watch this clip.
You're learning more about the professional signature collector who agreed to plead guilty to paying homeless people to
professional signature collector. That's such a thing.
Register to vote in Los Angeles. Brenda Lee Brown Armstrong admitted she used to pay people on Skid Row $2 or $3 to sign ballot initiative petitions and gave homeless people her address to use so they could register to vote.
And of course, she can give them her address because they know nobody's going to check the voter rolls to see how many people are registered there to vote at her one address.
Because you haven't registered, I need to register you so I can get paid too. I'm paying you guys, I need to get paid. Come on,
Did you hear what she said? I'm paying you guys, I need to get paid. So she gets a certain amount for every person that she registers, which is illegal.
Armstrong got paid for every signature she got, and the DOJ says this case is just the tip of the iceberg.
This case is important because it shows how easy it is under California law to corrupt the state's voter rolls and thereby corrupt the state and federal elections administered by the state.
So now the question is how widespread. Those in power would like to say, well, of course there's some fraud, but it's not widespread. The truth is, and I can tell you, having been up there, they have no idea. They have no idea how spread the fraud is because they do nothing to detect it, prevent it, or to prosecute it.
There you go. They don't do anything. Everybody knows they're not going to do anything. So let's get to the information that I talked about in my opener, which is a lawsuit that was filed by Tom Fitton at Judicial Watch, and it is a lawsuit based in California on behalf of Congressman Darrell Issa. They filed the lawsuit back in March of 2025, and the lawsuit challenges California's rule that lets mail-in ballots keep arriving and be counted for up to 7 days after Election Day.
Hey everyone, Judicial Watch just filed a major new federal lawsuit in California to stop that state's counting of ballots that are received up to 7 days after Election Day. We filed the lawsuit on behalf of Congressman Darrell Issa, who's from California. Federal law sets an election day, not an election week, not an election month. In fact, an appellate court in another Judicial Watch lawsuit ruled that counting ballots received after Election Day violates federal law. It undermines election integrity, undermines confidence in the people in the fair administration of the elections, and of course, violates federal law.
So how does this help Spencer Pratt? Here's how that Supreme Court win, which we're expecting that to drop from the Supreme Court any day. It was filed back in March of last year, so it's already been put on hold a couple of times. But here's how the Supreme Court win for Congressman Issa would directly help Spencer Pratt sue over his LA mayor race. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I've got 1 year of law school under my belt, but I had to research this because I knew that it would have some connection, but I also knew it wouldn't have a direct impact. But it could be useful to him if he decided to file his own lawsuit. Spencer Pratt, a powerful legal blueprint. The Supreme Court would be saying that the 7-day extension illegally changes Election Day for federal races. Why does this matter? That's an LA race. It's in the state. Well, he can argue that the exact same problem applies to his local race because every single ballot contains both federal and local races. It's what we call a bifurcated ballot. So what it does is it exposes the real world chaos. You can't split one ballot in half. It would be like a nightmare scenario for California. Late ballots create a logistical nightmare for every race on the ballot, including mayor. It makes it easier for Pratt to prove the system violates equal protections and due process, treating voters unequally and creating the appearance of rigging, which is exactly what it does. And for Spencer Pratt to actually win his own lawsuit based on this lawsuit, 3 things would need to happen. He would have to file quickly in a state or federal court using Darrell Issa's arguments plus the specific facts from his race, including the massive late ballot surge, the 43,000 votes that she somehow managed to get all to herself from LA's homeless shelters that overturned his lead. A judge would have to agree that the 7-day rule is unfair as applied to the LA mayor election. The court orders, this would have to happen. The court would have to order that the late ballots are thrown out or grants a new election under fairer rules. The bottom line, a Supreme Court win in the Issa case won't automatically fix Pratt's race, but it will hand him a loaded legal weapon and make his lawsuit much stronger and faster to win. So we're waiting for this. It could come down any day. Darrell Issa is a multi-term congressman from California in Orange County. And I think that if we can get this to stick, if that actually came down before the vote was, I know they've kind of already sort of called it for her, but if before the certification process happens, if this Supreme Court ruling would drop, it would certainly give Spencer Pratt at least something. If he decided he wanted to take that on, and he kind of seems like a fighter to me, that 7-day rule is what is allowing California to constantly count the vote until they win. And that's what I mean by a system set up in such a way where they're not cheating a legitimate voting system. They've just adjusted the system in such a way that they can vote until they get the outcome that they want. So I thought I would share that with you. I feel like it's interesting. We've had some really great Supreme Court wins lately, and now Trump has gone through and cleaned out the DOJ. So maybe we have a chance here. Who knows? Spencer Pratt, it's up to you. And all of us here in America, we are cheering you on. My name is Kelly Jackson. I am still not canceled. And at Still Not Canceled, we question the narrative every single time because you can't rely on any legacy media to give you the straight dope. I will do it every time. Thanks so much. Like and subscribe. Give me some comments that we can maybe talk about in the next video, and I will see you next time.